In the last lecture, we learned the different types of component in React. And in this lecture, let us continue with class-based component and let us see what is props and how to manage state in components. Let us see what is props. Now, let us create a fresh React project and then let us see what is props. To install React project, first go to File, then select the folder where you want to install. I'm in the folder React Tutorial Project. So in this folder, last time we installed my first project, and now we are going to install the second project in the same directory. So to create React app, we have two options. Either we can install it using npm or using npx. npm is a node package manager and npx is a tool and stand for node package execute. We should use npx instead of npm because npx temporarily downloads it and install it. Create React app we are only going to use once, so we should prefer npx. It also ensure that we use the latest build tool version. So let's create the second project. So we can use npx create React app, and after that we have to write the name of the project, that is second project, and once we hit enter it will install the required packages for this project. Now the installation has started. Let's resume once the installation is completed. Second project is successfully created, so we can see one folder, second project. Now we need to move to this directory, so we can do cd second project. Now we are in second project directory and we can run npm run start to start the project. Project is successfully running in the browser. Now let's go to app.js. So we can see this is a functional component, and let's convert it to a class-based component. To convert any functional component into a class-based component, we should write class instead of a function, and the name is app, and then we have to remove this opening and closing braces. After that we have to extend react.component. Extends. First we have to import the React package. So here we can import React and component from React. Now we have to extend this component, so we have to write component. And one more thing we have to do, we have to cut this return part and wrap everything inside the render method. So inside the render method we will return the JSX. Now if we'll paste it, save it and refresh the browser, we have successfully converted functional component into class-based component. So in this class-based component we are going to see what is props. So let us go to index.js. From this we can see it is calling app.js. So this index.js is calling app.js. So what is props? Props is basically the argument being sent from one component to the another component. So here index.js is calling app.js, and suppose we want to send any data from index.js to app.js, we can send them like an HTML attribute, and in this component it will be available in the props object. So let's see how we can pass the data. So here let us create one object, const obj. Here we are having two member, one is a name and another is phone. If we want to pass this object to this app.js, we have to simply write it as an HTML attribute. So we can give it any name. Suppose I am giving it as details, and we are in the details, we are passing this obj. Now let us save this. Now if we'll go to app.js, we can extract the properties that we got in this component as an argument. So here if we'll console log this dot props, now save it, if we'll go to console, refresh, we can see in the props we are getting one object, and that object contains two values. One is a name and another is a phone. So now let's get rid of this, and here suppose we want to show the value of the name props that we got from index.js. So let's write a simple p tag, and inside this we can write this dot props dot, then we can write name, and now if we'll save it, we are getting code to serve. And suppose we also want to extract the phone, we can copy this, and instead of name here we can write phone, and now let's save it, we are getting the phone. And there is much more cleaner way we can do this. So in destructuring lecture, we have learned how to destruct the value from an object. So we can simply do object destructuring, and over here we can write const, and after that curly braces. In that curly braces, whatever field we want to extract from that object, we have to write that. We want to extract name, and second is the phone, and equals to that object name. So where is that object? That object is inside the props, and from that props we can get that object details. So we have to use this. In class based component we have to use this. After that we can extract any value. So this dot details, that's it. And instead of this dot props dot name, over here we can simply write name, and over here we can simply write phone. Now let's save this. Oh, we made a mistake. We directly cannot access the details. We have to first extract it from the props, and then from props we can extract the details. So now let's save it. We are getting the same result. So suppose there are 10 to 15 field. So instead of writing this dot props dot details every time, we can destruct that, and we can directly use the name of that field. Now let us see about state. React has built-in state object, and in the state object we store the property value that belongs to that particular component. And whenever we change the state object, the components get re-rendered. So let's see how to initialize state and how to update the values in the state. To initialize the state, we should do it in the constructor. So during the class lecture, we have learned how to create a constructor. To create a constructor, we have to write the constructor keyword, and then bracket opening closing, and then the curly braces. And now in this constructor we can initialize the state. So to initialize the state, we have to use this dot state. We can see we are getting a property with state. So React has built-in state object. That is why we are getting the suggestion state. So in this state we can initialize it with an object. So here inside the object, let us create one count, and let that count value be 1. And if we want to use this state value in our JSX, we can simply copy this, and instead of phone we can write this dot state dot, after that we are getting the suggestion count. So if we'll save this, and we are getting an error. We got this error during that class lecture also, and that error is due to the super function that we are not calling inside the constructor. So we have to call super, and now let us save this. We are getting 1. So we have successfully initialized the state object. Now let us see how we can update it. And whenever the state object gets updated, it will call the re-render method again. So let us see if we are updating the value of the state, this re-render method is being called again or not. So in place of this dot props, let us use a template literals using backtick, and after that let us console the count value. So using backtick we can insert values dynamically. So here if we'll write rendering, and after that dollar and the curly braces, and here we can write this dot state dot count. So we have dynamically inserted the value inside a string. And after that, let us use set timeout. Set timeout is a global method available in JavaScript, using which we can do any task after a particular interval of time. So if we'll do set timeout, here it requires a callback function. Here you can see we require a callback function and then the timeout. So it required 2 arguments. Let us give the first argument as an arrow function, and let us give the timeout as 5 seconds. So in the second argument, here we have to give in millisecond. So if we'll give 5000 millisecond, it is equivalent to 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds I want this state value to get updated. So inside this arrow function we can use set state. Using the set state we can update the state object. So we can write this dot set state, and after that we have to pass the new state. Suppose that we want to update the count value. So in the new state I want the count, and I want the count value to be current value plus 1. So we can access the current value using this dot state dot count. After that we can do plus 1. So what it will do, after 5 seconds it will update the state value, and it will set the state value as the current value plus 1. Now let's save it and let us see after 5 seconds the value is getting updated or not. So here we are getting the first rendering 1. Now we have got 2 and we have got rendering 2. So after 5 seconds it got updated and it called the re-render method again. So we have to keep in mind, if we want the particular value to be initialized in the state, we have to do in the constructor. And if we want to change the value in the state, we can do by calling set state method, and in that method we have to pass the new state value. And also whenever the state value gets changed, it calls the re-render method and the component gets re-rendered.